one piece of advice I'd give anybody is to make sure that you focus on quality and to make sure that your clients are happy. I think in today's world, the quality that you deliver is the absolute most important thing that you can do, because your reputation, not only is it going to be made from word of mouth, it's going to be made from word of internet, and it's going to be up there. It's going to be out there forever.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. You ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Mark Siebert. And Mark started off his journey. He got a master's in business. Once he graduated, wanted to be able to do something different every day. So started out doing some work and teaching, as well as in the Department of Public Safety. And then from there moved into consulting into a consulting firm that helped businesses franchise, opened up a brokerage, and also helped businesses enter into the Japan region of the world, and then also helped businesses raise capital around 1998. Didn't like the direction of the company he was going with, decided he wanted to go in a different direction and branch out on his own. So with that, parted ways with the business, waited out a non-compete, and then started his own business, helping franchises, and then designing the companies around what's best in the industry, and built that out into several verticals, which is a bit of what he's doing today. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Mark.
Well, thanks, Devin. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Excited to have you on and looking forward to a great discussion. So I just took a much longer journey and condensed in the 30-second version of it. But why don't we rewind and unpack a bit? So tell us a little bit about how your journey got started getting your master's degree in business.
Well, I was always interested in business. I was always interested in how things worked. And I thought, there's no better way of learning how things worked than getting into the business field. And it was originally, my focus was really on marketing and trying to figure out why people bought things. And as I started getting through business, I found that there was I think a broader context within sort of the field of business that was of interest to me. And I started getting more interested in sort of finance and sort of the structure of things. And that sort of led to a more general background in business that I wanted to be able to capitalize on.
So now, so you're coming out of getting the undergraduate, getting the business degree, and I think you mentioned that you got into maybe the Department of Public Safety and a little bit into teaching, but help me walk through a little bit of what or where that started, or where you are headed after earning the degree.
Yeah, so the first job I got out of college was a worker at a company at the City of Chicago Department of Public Safety. And what we did there was to do a lot of grant writing and a lot of things that they weren't really my cup of tea. They were a good basis in terms of doing things, but it was all sort of public sector, and I really wanted to be in the private sector. So I did that for only a couple of years. And during that time, I was looking for something in the private sector where I could be more involved in sort of the business side of things, as opposed to some of the more public sector type of things.
So you decide, okay, you start out there, figure out, hey, this might not be quite my cup of tea, or it's not what I want to do for long term with my life, so to speak. And so walk us through a little bit. I think you mentioned that you kind of switched gears from public safety over into doing consulting and kind of business franchises. So how did you, that seems like it's a bit of a departure in a different direction. So how did you kind of get going in that direction?
Well, the thing that had always appealed to me from back in my college days was getting into the consulting business. The thing that really appealed about that was that I could be with a different kind of business every month, maybe even more frequently than that, every couple of weeks, I'm working with a different business on a different kind of problem, because to me, it's all about learning, and sort of the life's journey is about learning different things and doing different things. And I didn't want to be stuck in something which for me would be doing the same thing over and over again for 30, 40 years, and trying to just refine just that one thing, as opposed to being sort of the person who got to try my hand at a lot of different things in a lot of different categories. And so it turned out that franchising was really a perfect fit for me, because franchising is something that applies to so many different industries. We've got franchises and people think about it as a food service business, but you've got franchise in medical practices these days. You've got franchises in home services. You've got franchises in lawn care. You've got franchises in janitorial services. You've got franchises in carpet cleaning. You've got, you name the industry, it's franchised. Hotels are franchised. So you get a chance to get involved in so many different vertical market segments with franchising, but at the same time, the underlying or the underpinnings of sort of the business model are always the same, in that what you're looking to do is to use other people's capital to grow your business. And so that was really intriguing for me to be able to take that sort of shared expertise on how to grow a business and apply it across a variety of different business formats.
Makes sense. Now, I get that endeavor. Now let me follow up the question, which is, so franchising sounds like fun, get to do a lot of different diversity, have a lot of different impact, and be able to switch between there. Now, how did you get started, or how did you get into the industry? In other words, there was a consulting firm that just simply just throw your, the resume in the stack and they chose you and they said you're awesome, or kind of how did you make that transition from going from, public safety into the franchise industry?
It's exactly how it happened, Devin. I was actively searching for consulting firms, and the consulting firm that happened to pick me up was a company that was in the franchise space. I didn't know really anything about franchising at that time, and I just knew that I wanted to work in the consulting industry, and I wanted to work on a variety of different projects throughout the course of a year, and they were just a perfect fit for me, and so it worked out very well for me.
So now, you get into the franchise business. You start or doing the consulting and working for the consulting firm. And I think at some point along the way, you also got into a brokerage company and helping companies enter Japan and raising capital, and a lot of different fields. So walk us through a little bit of how that progressed.
Yeah, those were all different positions within the same company, and so basically, the company was a growing company, and I just look for opportunities within that company to find ways to help them generate revenue. And they had an opportunity to do a business venture where they were helping companies to grow in the Japanese market. And I put my hand up and said, I'm ready to go to Japan and help sell franchises in Japan. And so we did that for a few years, and it was very successful. And a few years later, they came and they said they wanted to help companies to raise capital. And I raised my hand and I said, I'd love to get into that. And so I was involved in that for a few years. And then a few years later, they said, well, you've done a great job with these things. Let's make you an executive vice president. And they moved me up the ladder, and I continued to sort of grow in that company. But as you were pointing out earlier, what ended up happening was we sort of came to a different philosophy in terms of the way to work with some of the clients that we had. And I wanted to grow the business by adding people that were former senior level executives of major franchise companies, because I wanted to have a longer term relationship with our clients. And the business that I was involved with was more focused in on working with companies that were more startups in nature only. And they hired mostly people frankly, like I was when I entered, which was somebody who was a fresh, young MBA, smart, but who didn't have a lot of franchise experience on day one. And so I wanted to create something that was based on highly experienced consultants. And so I decided, once I ended up being the president of that company and was there, I helped them to develop their international operations, open them up in about a dozen different markets. But ultimately, the the challenge became I wanted to be able to work with franchise companies longer term, and decided that I wanted to remake the franchise consulting industry in a way that we could have long-term relationships with successful companies, both startup franchisors and established franchisors, by bringing in highly experienced people that have grown businesses from the ground up, oftentimes sold those businesses for hundreds of millions of dollars or more as part of their history, and that's really what we did at iFranchise Group.
So now, so maybe just rewinding just a little bit. So, I mean, you mentioned business started going in a different direction, said, okay, I can either, I've done a lot of work, done a lot of things to build this. I can either try and, change it from the inside out, so to speak, or shift the course in the direction, or I can go in a different direction and, kind of set things up and pursue it how I wanted to. Now, how did you kind of make that decision between the two, right? Because, I mean, you could have gone either way. You could have tried to change it from the inside out, or just start over, so to speak, and what was kind of that progression, or how did you decide to make that decision?
Well, it wasn't my decision to make, actually. I was not the owner of the company. I was the president of the company, but I was not the owner of the company. And I mentioned my business plan to the owner, and the owner of the company said, look, we're doing great the way we are right now, and I don't really need to change the direction of the company. I don't want to change the direction of the company. And, this is my company, and we're going the direction that I want to go. And, it's his decision to make, and I had to honor that. So ultimately, the question that I had to address was whether I wanted to become an entrepreneur and do it on my own, or whether I wanted to continue to follow somebody else's dream and make it happen for them.
No, makes sense. So you decide, okay, get or talk with the business. They're sitting there, and it is their prerogative, right? It's their business. They can decide which direction they want to go, but it's not the direction that you wanted to head. So you say, okay, gonna go out, decide to go to the entrepreneurial path, do it on your own. Now, I think you did mention at one point you had to wait out a non-compete, or that was part of that period. So what did you do while you were waiting out the non-compete? Did you just take a sabbatical and or live up life, or did you do other things, or kind of what did you do as you were waiting to take the entrepreneurial path?
Yeah, well, I worked with a couple of companies that were outside the scope of the non-compete. There were a couple of companies that were not that were not covered under the non-compete that I could work with, and so I did a little bit of work outside the scope of the non-compete, so I did that. But largely, I was, I would say 90% sabbatical and 10% just doing a little bit of work on the side. And actually, my former employer actually had me do some work for him as well, as part of the process, as part of the transition. And so we initially parted on pretty good terms, and it worked out that it helped me to start the business.
Well, sounds like it was a good transition and worked out well. So now you wait out the non-compete, decide to go the entrepreneurial path, or go in a different direction than your former employer, and take a different tack. Now, how did that go? Was it just a rocket ship to the top, and you had more business and more money than you knew what to do with, or was it still figuring things out or evolving and kind of catches up? Kind of how did that went as you decided to go out on your own?
Well, it was not a rocket ship to the top. I think, like most new entrepreneurs, you go through your initial struggles. I started out working out of my spare bedroom, and the basement of my house was where I kept my copier, because there wasn't enough room in the bedroom for the copier and the desk. So it was a pretty small venture to start. It was myself for the first several months, along with one other person who helped me on the admin side. And then ultimately, I brought on one other person to help with some of the operations manuals. One of the things we do for our clients is to develop operations manuals and training programs. And I brought somebody else on who was capable of doing that. But then the real, I think, the rocket fuel that sort of got us to take off came a couple of years later, when I was able to recruit Dave Hood to become the president of the company. Dave was somebody that I had known for many years, and was the former president of Auntie Anne's Pretzels. he had just got finished growing Auntie Anne's pretzels from 6 units to 650 domestic units and another 100 international units. And they had just sold the company. And Dave was looking for something to do. And I said, Dave, come to work for me. You'll be doing something different every day. We'll have a lot of fun doing this. And somehow I managed to convince him to do them. I gave him half the company. It was the best decision I ever made. I did, it wasn't like we bargained about it. And we've never had an argument in the 25 years that we've been together since. It's been the best partnership I could ever ask for.
That's
And
awesome.
the fact that he had that kind of credibility in the franchise marketplace, it was exactly what I needed for my business model. It was sort of the start of sort of my plan, which was bringing people that have been there and done it, so that when it comes time to talk to a franchise prospect who wants to get into franchising, or a franchisor who's already franchising, I've got somebody who's been there and done it, and as opposed to sort of the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed young MBA who, may have the best intentions but doesn't have the experience to back up necessarily everything they're saying. And so we started with that, and then we began recruiting more aggressively and bringing on more and more people to do the kind of work that we were doing. But Dave was really the impetus, I think, for the success of the company. And because we had that kind of experience, we were able to have some very early success stories with some of our clients, and the success stories of our clients really propelled us to that next level. So we put together the franchise program, for example, for Massage Envy. They had 1 unit when they started with us. Today they've got 1,600 locations. We put those guys together, and when people saw what we did for them, that was another thing that people said, well, look, if you can do that for these guys and all they had was 1 location, maybe you can do something like that for me. And there's a lot more stories like that I could go into, but I'm sure you got limited time here. But that's the kind of, when you have successful clients is what breeds that sort of faith that people have in you. When you have, clients are saying great things about you. John Leonicio, actually, who's the president of Massage Envy, ended up writing the foreword to my first book and talked about how his experience with us is what essentially helped him launch that brand. And he subsequently has gotten into 4 different new franchises that he's launched, and all of them been successful.
Oh, that's awesome. And I said, it is hard to substitute success. In other words, if you have a track record of success, you can show what you've done for others. It certainly is something that lends a lot of credibility to you, and can be definitely helpful to business. So it sounds like bringing on the partner, getting that success, and then also just continuing to build the business with more and more success definitely gives you that snowball effect and allows you to reach new audiences and really to grow the business. So now catch us up a little bit where you're at today. Business is still going, still helping franchises, still growing, looking to expand, looking to shrink, looking to keep where you're at, or kind of where are things at today?
Today, we're the #1 rated franchise consulting firm in the world. Entrepreneur Magazine, which is completely independent of us, does an annual poll where they will reach out to all the franchisors in North America, and they say, who is the best franchise consulting firm out there? And they rate them from, some years it's 1 to 10, some years it's 1 to 15. They've done this 4 years in a row. Over the course of this time, they've surveyed several thousand franchisors. And in each of the 4 years they've done this poll, the iFranchise Group was rated the #1 franchise consulting firm by in this independent poll. And there have been other people that have been rated, 2 through 10, 2 through 15, but we've never rated below #1 in that poll. Since that time, we've also developed a company called Top Farm Media, which is a franchise marketing firm that does franchise SEO, franchise public relations. They help companies to develop websites. They will help companies with their franchise lead generation efforts. We've also developed an international division, and have opened up an office in Dubai, where we help companies in the Middle East to franchise. And so we're actively growing the business. 2022 was our best year. We are looking to continue to expand this year, and we are looking at perhaps some additional vertical or horizontal integration into some other areas.
No, that's awesome. Sounds like definitely it's great to have that ongoing growth and continued expansion and be able to help even more businesses along their journey to success. So it sounds like a great place to be. So, well, now as we've reached kind of the present day of your journey and seeing a bit where you're headed, great time to transition to the two questions I always ask at the end of each episode. So we'll jump to those now. So the first question I always ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? What'd you learn from it?
Well, I think that there have been a number of bad decisions that I've made, but if I were going to say the worst business decision that I've made, probably the worst business decision that I've made is trying to make things work that sort of weren't going to work, and that can, I think I probably stayed at the other company too long. I should have made the move a little bit sooner, and trusted my instinct that I was going in the right direction. And I think there have been other instances where I've had people on my team where where I realized they weren't a good fit, and I wanted to try and, I didn't want to be the bad guy and to tell these guys, look, you're not a fit, you got to go. And sometimes the best thing you can do for people is to tell them that they're not a fit and to have them leave sooner rather than later. I think that, in the name of quality, sometimes you have to hurt some feelings, and it's a hard lesson to learn because it's never an easy thing to do to fire somebody or to get rid of somebody, but sometimes you have to make that decision, and that delaying
No,
that decision can be very difficult.
No, and I think that that's one that it can be hard, because even whether it's turning down clients and you're saying, hey, you're just not the right fit, or we can't help you, or and it can be, sometimes to your point, it can be nice in the long run, or it can be kind in the long run, and yet on the short run they're wanting to have your help, they're wanting your expertise, or wanting to do that. And same thing even with within internally within your company is, sometimes it's not the best thing to keep people on, or keep them or move, or keep them within the company because it's not the right fit for them, or it's not where they're going to flourish or grow or otherwise be successful. So, but it's always one where you have that kind of that tug and pull of what you should do, and what you end up, or what you need to do. So that's definitely a great mistake to learn from.
Yeah.
Second question now that I always ask is, now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
The one piece of advice I'd give anybody is to make sure that you focus on quality, and to make sure that your clients are happy. I think in today's world, the quality that you deliver is the absolute most important thing that you can do, because your reputation, not only is it going to be made from word of mouth, it's going to be made from word of internet, and it's going to be up there. It's going to be out there forever. And if you say something and your client thinks you said something else, you want to do everything you can to satisfy that client, even if it's going to cost you a little bit more money, even if it's going to eat into your margin. You need to make sure that you've got a happy and a satisfied client. And sometimes that's going to mean that your margin is going to suffer a little bit because of it. But the most important thing is happy, satisfied clients in today's world. If you want to make sure that you are going to be successful, make your clients happy, make them successful, and everything else will follow. If you have clients who are unhappy and unsuccessful, I can pretty much guarantee you a failing business.
Yep, it's hard to keep a business going with unhappy or unsuccessful clients. Now, you can sometimes get away with it in the short run, take advantage of people,
That's right.
or not let them know. But I totally agree that if you're building a business that you want to have be lasting and be successful, you need to take care of the clients. And to your point, sometimes it's you eat crow, even though it's not your fault. Sometimes you make it up. Sometimes you take the lower margin, and sometimes you have to adjust things so that you can continue to build and grow the reputation and the relationships and the business, as opposed to sometimes that short-term game. So I think that's a great takeaway. Well, now as we wrap up the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Well, our website is ifranchisegroup.com. It's a small I with the word franchise and the word group.com. If they go there, they can get access to a lot of information. We have our book there. We have a lot of different articles on franchising there. They can certainly reach out to us there. They can write to us at info@ifranchisegroup.com as well. They can call us, so however they want to reach out to us, usually the website is usually the starting point for them, ifranchisegroup.com.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, support a great business. If you have a franchise, make a great connection. And if nothing else, make a new best friend. So with that, thank you again, Mark, for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you listeners that are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review. Helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And on that note, if you ever need help with along your journey with patents, trademarks, or anything else with your startup, your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat. We're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Mark, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you so much. It was nice talking to you, Devin.